goal. Let's finish section 1.8 today. We only have one quick little topic, and then if you guys look at the backboard just to orient yourselves, we're starting 1.9. Nice thing is homework isn't due until Wednesday, but we're starting it today, finishing it tomorrow. Starting 110 Wednesday. Let me show you the calendar. Finishing 110 Thursday, test review Friday, chapter 1, test, sections 1:1 to 110 on Monday, I believe. I'll pull it up to give you guys a quick visual. You guys know where to look on your website. Class calendar. So 2 days on 1:9, 2 days on 1:10. We finally get to slow down just a little bit. Not that we're slowing down, but the sections are longer. Yeah, 2 days on homework 9, 2 days on homework 10. So Friday we're going over homework 10. We're also doing a work day on the review, and then Monday's a test. You guys oriented? Good. All right, let's go ahead and get back. What's the difference between composing and decomposing? What does composing mean? Why is a composition book called a composition book? Let's start there. All the papers are writing. Don't musicians make compositions also? Construction. Making something. Maybe closer. Creating something by putting together. Right? Because if it's a writing composition, then you're putting together words, paragraphs, pages, etc., to make a larger work. How does that work with music too? Does that work with music? Yeah, putting notes together in order to make a bigger composition. I'm sure you could get a little more detailed, but that's okay. So composition of functions. What are we doing with the composition of functions? Hold on, going back away from decomposition. What are you doing with compositions? Putting together functions. Now hold on. Careful. In math, though, is it a very particular way of putting it together? Okay. Very particular way. You have to follow the formula. I guess you could even talk about it with like a standard essay. What are the parts of a standard essay? Intro, body, conclusion, think about it like that. But there's still some sort of formula you almost always follow for a particular piece of, like a particular work of art or a particular type of literature that you're writing, etc. Like poetry would be very different than an essay. If you were trying to do like a demonstrative, it would be different. That's a form of speech. Different types of poetry follow different rhythms, different pentameters, and all that sort of stuff. Different meters, I should say. Rhyming, non-rhyming. Okay, so for math and composition, there's a specific way to do a composition, and we're specifically saying F of G of X, and we have to think about with compositions, we have to think about plugging in, right? Is that a crucial idea with composition? If you don't think plugging in ever when you're doing a composition, are you ever going to get it right? Probably not. If you're not doing this, you're not doing that correctly, right? So compositions need plugging in. We got an example on Friday, right? We only got one example done. Ooh, and I said it was an easy example too. Struggle. Maybe we'll have to come back and look at these again. But really quickly, how did I do G of F? How do you say this again, this transition? G of F of -2. If you were tutoring someone in this, like a regular pre-cal or algebra 2 or even algebra 1 kid, what would you warn them of right here? It's not mean multiplication, right? The same way I'm trying to remind you, you would remind others in the sense of that's what the brain's going to think. It's time, and it's not. Which is why we talked about how to write it, right? G of F of -2. With compositions, from what you guys did in homework, what would your advice be as far as where to start in a composition? With which one? Yeah, start with, well, if you were to generalize this though, trying to give like another student steps as to what to think about, always think about the one on the inside. I would say that. Start on the inside. So you have negative 2 going into who? F. So you figure out who is F, right? And change the argument to be F of negative 2 instead. Is that where we started? Mm-hmm. And we got it. And what do you do once you find the value of the inner? Plug that in, substitute, and plug into G. So then you take G's function, plug in what the 0 is, plug it into the equation, and then simplify. Okay, that's composition. We're putting functions together in a very specific way. Some of you might have figured out what the Some of you might have figured out over the weekend in homework what this is. But let's just think about the word first of all. If composing means to put together, what does decomposing mean?
Take apart.
Kind of. Take apart to break down. Right? Decomposing bodies, what do they do? Mm-hmm. The composition of the body is breaking down, right? Decomposing. Okay, so decomposing, what do you guys see as you look at what's given to you? What's different? They don't give you the pieces. What do they give you? The end result or the composition. They give it to you. The composition has already been done. What are they asking for us to do?
Take it apart.
Take it apart. It's all been put within already. We need to take it apart. Now, there is something you guys should be aware of, and actually, if you look at the answer key and anybody did try this problem, most problems are going to say one example of how it could have been decomposed, because there are maybe different ways to decompose a certain function. But usually it's pretty straightforward. And my hint to you is, look at the functions inside out. Look at the functions from the inside to the out. Always start on the inside. So what do you guys see in the innermost? This takes some skill. But what do you see in the innermost of that function f of g of h of x? Well, okay, on the left-hand side you do see h of x, right? So if we're starting inside out, we're going to start with the h of x and say, okay, we're trying to figure out who the innermost guy is, but then looking over here at the function, who do you see that is most within? Yes, x plus 1 is not only under the square root, but what is it also? Inside the square. It's under the square root, inside the square. I would agree. Probably the best way to decompose this function is to see h as x plus 1. Now, if we were to keep looking out, say, okay, g would be the next function. Now think, g would be the function that h was plugged into. Now I can't say the whole rest of the thing because that would be f as well. But can you guys ask yourself the question, what does x plus 1 seem to have been plugged into? What would you say? Now some of you were like, well, I understand that it's being squared. And if you guys want to think about it, it's something squared. But we don't just say something. What's the argument we're supposed to use for g? So instead of just saying something squared, we're going to say, well, who is that something? Well, we're just going to call him an unknown x. Not the same x as that guy. That's the x that goes with h. This is the x that goes with g. But x plus 1 was plugged into a squared. And we could technically just stop there. That's not totally bad. Let's go ahead and show two different variations. If we were to stop there, we'll talk about who is f. The question, what else could we have done? What's another variation? I'm going to just say an or. Yeah. X plus 1 could have gotten plugged into x squared minus 2. Right? So couldn't x plus 1 plugged in, squared minus 2, it would have gotten the entire underneath. But if it was just plugged into x squared and that was it, question, what would the next one be? Square root of somebody minus 2. Yeah, you would have to go ahead, somebody make it to x, that's the variable with the input. So if it's confusing, just think of, remember, x plus 1 got input to a squared, change the input to an x. Now you can say x squared got inputted into square root of input minus 2. Replace the input with an x. X just marks the spot as to where the input goes. Now what would be different over here on our OR scenario? It would just be the square root of input. Then put an x. Do both of them technically work? Yes. Any ideas as to which one I think is the better of the two? I would still mark both of them completely correct. Which one do you think I think is better? I kind of like. Reason being, I try to simplify each of the functions as much as possible. So I have a linear, then I have a polynomial, then I have a square root. They're separated, they're not segregated, but they're separated. Whereas this one, you end up with a polynomial under a square root. Only someone in calculus would totally understand why I like this better. Eileen, if you were to take a derivative, would you think about it like this or think about it like that? Yeah. You would want to leave the square root totally separate, not think of the square root with somebody underneath. But anyway. This is the better of the two, but once again, what did I say? I would technically mark both of them. You guys whisper too much. Yes, I would totally mark both of them right. But if you are trying to think about like preparing for the future, we would try to keep each of the pieces as separate as possible. In a sense of I have the x plus 1, then I have this function, then I have the square root. Okay, that's homework number 8, section 1.8. Can you guys turn to the back of your spirals real fast? Just because we didn't get to do the other two. Can you guys do A and B? The ones without numbers. Section 1.8, right? Section 1.8. You can call them examples, you can call them practice, you can call them composition. Take a second outside of your notes, because it would be a lot of order if you did it by notes. In the workspace, back of your spirals, go ahead and just remember draw a line underneath each, that way you haven't separated. And just call it 1.8 compositions or 1.8 practice. I want you guys to just try A and B. You didn't see that today. After the homework, were you able to figure this out? Ready, set, go. Try it on your own first. I'll have you guys collaborate in groups in just 1 second. Homework you probably were supposed to simplify. Probably didn't want to simplify. More seconds of time on your own. Alright, go ahead and collaborate in groups real quick. Talk it out, check it up, see how it went.
6 minus the first one is negative x squared plus negative plus 6 squared.
And then you go first on the x, and then you put first one, put this, and then make this.
And then b I got x squared plus 6.
Yeah, you plug in the two ways. Or which in the first time you got like the first square, so yeah.
I felt like
We did the same. I think like in the fire.
I think Paul used to add f.
Enjoying yourself.
You guys understand, just to get ready to show you the process and check with you, you see why I wrote what I wrote? What did I use as my formula that I'm going to input into for A? I used F because he's the outer. Good. So he sets the pace. He sets the formula. Who's getting put in? G. So you could go ahead and say G and be like, hey, I'm plugging G in. Where am I plugging him into? To the input spot. Who's the input spot? For F, quantity plus 2 is the quantity. But then most of you, if you understood that, you probably just plugged it in, right? So you have 4 minus x squared plus 2. Do the parentheses have any bearing as to the meaning? Do you distribute or change the signs or change the quantities? What's on the outside? Just a positive one, which isn't going to change any of the signs. So at the end of the day, I am going to end up with 4 minus x squared plus 2, which ends up with 6 minus x squared. Who got the first one? Majority. Those of you that didn't, identify your mistake. Maybe even with a colored pen. As long as it's a negative with the x squared plus 6, that's totally fine. But the mistake that I would see if anyone switched the order would be x squared minus 6, which would be just a 1. On letter B, who set the pace? Who set the formula? G, because he's on the outside, right? What gets inputted into G for sake of notation? F does, right? But ultimately, F needs to come out, and what needs to go in? Yeah, who he is. Now, if you were tutoring someone, if you don't want to admit that you could possibly make this mistake, if you were tutoring someone not really knowing their capabilities, what would you warn them of right now? Don't kill a puppy. AKA, how do you simplify binomial squared? Could some people say square the first, square the last, outer, inner, double? Sure. Majority of kids, though, don't remember that shortcut. So it's easier just to say, you know how to FOIL, so do it. It takes one extra step. At the end of the day, hopefully you guys ended up with, does anybody know the next one you need to do besides just FOILing? Don't kill a seal. Have you guys checked it out yet? What's going on with the seal? What's wrong with what you see? Did not distribute the negative to everything. I just graded pre-cal test last night until about 11. Guess how many people do I have to say killed the seal? And killed the puppy? A lot, especially with the difference quotient. Guess how many killed the seal? Look, it's the very first one I looked at of the honors pre-cal. You guys do it too. If I was to look, do you want to count real quick? Difference quotient. 5?
7.
There's seal, dead. That's 1. Hold on, I know the right one. Maybe that's what that doesn't mean everyone's getting it right, just maybe you're not killing seals. Oh, it was on seal. Oh, no. Oh, seal. seal and a puppy. So there's 2 seals dead and a puppy dead. Oh, there's a 3rd seal dead. Oh, there's a 4th seal dead. Oh, and a kitten. We already talked about that one. Yeah, trouble. Okay, so now we have what? 5 seals, 4 seals, and a kitten and a puppy.
Oh, I think that would happen.
Check it out.
You want to X squared, just cancel the X squared.
Maybe it wasn't named it off. Okay, another seal. 5 seals, puppy, and a kitten. Not the biggest slaughter thing in town. Coming back though. Be careful. Do it step by step. If I were you, you need to keep the parenthesis. This is the guy that warns you, hey, watch out, distribute. Okay? So I have the x squared. Hopefully you guys see the 4x, and hopefully you see the 4. But a lot of you just don't write the parentheses, and you don't think about it. You're going too fast. You have to be careful. That's 4 minus x squared minus 4x minus 4. You guys cancel out the 4's and get negative x squared minus 4x, or you could have factored, I suppose. Anybody willing to say that you killed him? Oh, yes, good. Good job. Be real, right? The mistake happens. Just slow down.
What do you distribute the negative on the first step, like 4 minus x plus 2 squared?
Can't distribute it yet, because the problem is if you distribute and then square it, it's like a have no meaning whatsoever. Does that make sense? So you have to be careful to think PEMDAS. That's why the power must go first and then the distribution. Good question. Good question. All right, cool. That's A. That's B. Any quick questions about compositions? Going once, going twice? If you killed something, write it down in a colored pen and say, don't do it again. Okay. Let's go ahead and check homework 8. Go ahead and turn to the front, homework 8. We'll grade, maybe number 52 you want to try study on. That was the decomposition. So we'll grade up until the last couple. We'll save the last couple until, we can grade it tomorrow. That's okay. We don't have another homework due. But let's grade the first ones. You guys should have that fully attempted. And let's make sure the beginning went okay. Did anybody wait to do homework until later and have to go back and be like, wait, what is this again? Isn't notation weird? You have to get used to it, right? But what did I have you do in notes? Which is why we take notes, to try to help you out for when the notation looks weird. There's a reason you wrote this down. There's a reason you're supposed to do homework with your notes, right? So that you can go ahead and reference, because I'm trying to show you what might get confusing in homework. All right, number 2 is the composition. Number 10. A, B, C, and D. Let me give you a second. A, was there any way to put them together?
No.
Not really. I guess I could have tried to get a common denominator. So let me write it or, just in case some of you were being super snazzy. For being super snazzy, I suppose the other way. If you really wanted to put it together, that's pretty much the way that you would have to do it. Otherwise, you should have just stopped and said they're unlike terms. You can't put them together. Some of you got confused by how simple it is. Same with B. You do the same thing as this, but with a minus. Cannot put them together. C, same thing. You can't simplify. The only thing you can do is, well, I can put him over 1 and make it a nice pretty fraction with those 2 on top and him on the bottom. D, that was a little bit of a mess. Careful, this is a division sign. Some of you might think that's a plus. It's a division. There you go, make it more obvious. And how do you divide by a fraction, cool kids? Do you see how the x squared plus 1 ended up in the numerator and the x squared ended up in the denominator? If this x squared somehow disappeared because you thought you could reduce it, whether you crossed out 1 or both, in your color pen, write till the kitten. You cannot reduce with a numerator-denominator unless the terms perfectly match. And neither of these perfectly match. Has to be factored. A kitten said, you see something down here, see at the top, like, whatever, it goes away. No, it's not true. It only goes away if what's in the parentheses perfectly matches, and it doesn't. Okay. Do you guys get your mistakes from number 10? Have you had any? What's going on with the domain part in the very, very end? Well, I'm it doesn't work though in Microsoft Word. It works in this one. Working on the domain, cool kids. Yeah, you have to think about the square root, and you have to think about the denominator when it applies. But the long story short with the square root is that the argument must be greater than or equal to 0. Did you guys figure out why it was in between 2 and negative 2? A little bit tricky. This is hard because there's a square. But you guys see the domain problem, right? Argument greater than or equal to 0 according to our table of problems from section 1. 2? Maybe? How would you solve? You want to see the actual way to solve, even though we're not reviewing it for quite a while? Technically, you would factor. You could add the 4 plus or minus square root, but then you have to realize when you do the negative square root and inequality flips, it's kind of messy. You could also put it this way and say, okay, when does x equal 0? 2 and negative 2, right? So I have negative 2 and 2. I'm going to use both of them. Here's the question. In order to have something be positive, right? Aren't the options either a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative? Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So if I was to go ahead and if I was to do a number line, I know it can equal 2 because it's equal to 0. Here's the question. Is it going to be what's in between? So it's x within negative 2 to 2, or is it what's on the outside, x above 2 and x below negative 2? How do you know? You test it. And you ask yourself, does 3 work? 3 plus 2 and 3 minus 2, is that a positive times a positive is greater than or equal to 0? That works. There's some answers. X greater than or equal to 2. Does, pick something in between, does 1 work? Positive times a negative. Ooh, nope. Does negative 3 work? Negative times a negative is positive. And we're reviewing inequalities, but that's technically the process to actually solving for that one. So you guys might have been a little confused because that's a hard inequality. It's not as easy as just adding the 4. You have to add the 4 plus or minus square root both of them, and it just gets a little messy. Why isn't the ink clear when I hit clear ink? Okay, what's our next even, cool kids?
18.
Okay, let me give you a second. Let me freeze the screen and go back and get rid of all that writing. The notation gets tricky. First of all, before look at the answer first, right or wrong, then look at the formula. What did they do and how did they do it? You were adding f of t minus 2 plus g of t minus 2. The notation, it was f of plus g. That was the notation. Now look at your notes. So you plugged in t minus 2 to f, that's this part right here. Plugged in t minus 2 to g, that part right there. The name of the game is simplify and don't kill anything. Couple more seconds, but get the final answer down. I don't necessarily give you time to write down all the work. T squared minus 3t minus 1. Number 32, A, B, and C. Check it out. Oh, sorry. This is what we just did in the back of our spiral. Some of you might have made similar mistakes. Your colored pen. You're grading it. This is a pop quiz. You would have missed something. All things to consider when being ready for a test. A is 1 minus 3x. B negative 3x. C. Number 42. Still, I don't think, no compositions yet, right? Or no decomposition, sorry. No decompositions yet. A, 20 minus 3x, B, negative 3x, and C, x. 42. This is the question on 42 has to do with domain. We'll talk about domain in a second. Check the final answers to what you need. already see 44. Here's another one. Still not a decomposition. You're still using your notation. Questions on 42 or 50? Sorry, 42 or 44? If the domain makes sense, you guys rotate. Denominator can't equal 0. Remember, to get the answers down, you're supposed to go back and in your pencil try to figure out how to do it. Unless you already have the work and you can correct it real fast and say, well, that was done. Oops. That's okay. If you didn't know how to do it, you never will if you just write down the solution. 44, negative 1, 0. 52, aha! For those of you that tried it, you can see if yours works. For those of you that didn't try it, just wait. Just wait. We'll talk about it tomorrow. 60, we'll talk about it tomorrow as well. Ooh, that was fun. Bacteria in food. Yep. If you guys want to check 52, they decided to say that's the inner and that's the outer. That's the inner, that's the outer. But we'll go ahead and talk about that tomorrow after everybody gets a chance, just in case some of you truly stopped where I said you could. Notes open 1.9. As you guys get started, look over what you have to grade tonight. Since we don't have a homework due tomorrow, I'll go over number 60 tomorrow. Number 52 if you still need it, for those of you who didn't try it over the weekend. And then if you have any odds or even questions that you aren't able to resolve on your own, have them ready tomorrow. Sound good? I'm going to pass out your quizzes. I think they're already in my notes.
Yeah.
They are either 20 points, so it was 1/5 of the test. 50 points, no. It's a quiz. If it was a quest, it would be 50. Or higher. Something else. Oh, is it wrong? The introduction, not correction. Mr. Chase,
Yes. Let's do a couple.
well, yeah, because you can give them to me for less. There are times, if you guys count really quickly, you're smart, right? How many blanks, how many questions can be covered on one page? Sorry, on one paper that you just got. 8, unless you want to be super snazzy and cut them all in half and write really small than 16. Okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you guys do write big, or if the problems do need a lot of work, you might have to, at some point, I usually have a huge stack, the office is still doing my copy of 200. I usually have a huge stack, so if you're on a test, might need 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. Hopefully that never happens, but sometimes it does. But these correction papers you're going to use for every single test and most printed quizzes. Not like unit circle quizzes, but like printed quizzes. Because do I care about you learning how to do something for the first time? Yes. Practicing making mistakes and learning from those mistakes? Yes. Coming to an assessment and still needing to analyze what mistakes you still made? Yes. So, in your quiz, you're going to see things that are marked wrong. You might even see the correct answer circled. But does that mean just because I say something like kill this seal and I circle a right answer, does that mean you automatically know how to do it? So go and look at the table. What's the very leftmost column?
Concept.
This concept could be something like the zeros, or the difference quotient, or domain, or points, or symmetry, or intercepts. Does that make sense? A 1 or 2 word, what's the big idea? Okay, what's the next column? Give me, I missed 4, 6, and 8. That's what goes in there, right? 4 in one, 6 in another, 8 in another. What's the next one? I want you to take what you were able to do and make it right. And what if you just leave the problem blank or you just guessed and really had no clue? Show me how to do it right. If you did something, start there and then be like, ooh, yeah, that's not right. Let me go here. Basically, I just want to see, can you work it out the right way? And then what's on the far right? Okay. You know what the lamest, dumbest one is that I ever get? don't know, didn't know, forgot. Does that show a lot of effort? Does that show like you're really trying to figure out what went wrong when your brain was processing the problem? No. Do you know to study things before a test? Yes. Could it be something like, I forgot the formula for difference quotient? If I hadn't given you the formula for the difference quotient, I suppose. Maybe you forgot the formula for slope. Okay, you told me what you forgot. Does that make sense? Okay. But either tell me specifically what you forgot, or don't use the word forgot, and instead tell me what went wrong. Sound good? Okay. Doesn't have to be a paragraph. A sentence is sufficient. Kiddos, we have the beginning of 1-9 done. That's about all we're going to get done, and that's okay. When you hear your name, come on down and grab your quiz. Jack, Kevin, Caroline, walk on down. Abby, Colby. Oh, got it. John, Victor, Ryan. Oh, sorry, Ryan next. Other Ryan, you're doing comments. Trisha. Okay. Joseph. Tony. David. Andrew. Jacob. Melanie. Janelle. Caro. Ryan. Other Ryan. Kiddos, do you really think you can get super far in 1.9 tonight? So what might tonight be a good night to work on? Because we have chapter 1, sections 1 through 10 tests on Monday. When do these corrections due?
Friday.
I added it. Friday. Why? I'm going to get this corrected before we can ever start doing the whole test, right? Cool. If you got absolutely nothing wrong and the bonus right, turn in a blank correction paper and have an automatic 100. This is a homework assignment. This is not bonus. It's a homework assignment in your portfolio category with 10% of your grade? Something like that, along with notes and material. Good questions.
You really got the bonus wrong, we have to correct.
Yes. Because it means that it's still something you learned that I want you to figure out what went wrong or why you weren't able to get it.
Oh, we weren't.
Everybody should get
叫我写一个瑞士的那个看。哦，他买那个啊，然后你每天他妈发，操！他有点拍到就是这样子。但是墨镜儿。
The best part is, I went to Mr. Chad this morning. I told the exact problem. I totally messed up. I wrote it the wrong way.
At least you knew.
And he told me,
Why do I kill the kid? I was totally